Hey everybody, welcome back to Xi4P Podcast, the show where we take a look at comics, mutants, magic, and marvels week after week through their many monthly titles. I'm Nico, and you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Nico Action. That's NicoAction.
And I'm Arturo. You can find me at Mr. Toybox on Twitter and Instagram.
Hi, I'm Juancho. You can find me on Twitter at LessonCocoa.
Hi, I'm Steve, and you can find me on Twitter at How Do You Do That?
And I'm Jonah. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at PeakJonah. That's P-E-A-K. And we hope you survived this experience just like Lorna did, surviving this confrontation with her father. But you failed. Your efforts backfired, and you only made me stronger.
Haha, your tasers only make me stronger. So, I need to start with this was like my pick of the month. So I'm really protective of this book, but I do see its flaws, and I am going to open up with, of course, we're talking about Trial of Magneto #1 by the incredible team of Leah Williams and Lucas Wernick, as well as Edgar Delgado coming in on colors. VC's Clayton Cowles bringing it every time over on letters. And I want to start with, there are so few things in life as emotionally fulfilling as reading a woman get to write someone crushing Xavier's head. That was so much Magneto just swallowing it for the last 2 years in one panel. But anyway, I'm so excited. That's first opinions. Up, down, 2 ups, up, down. Arturo, how did you feel about this book? Where was your heart in this book?
I'm still stuck on Magneto swallowing it for 2 years. So forgive me, that threw me. I'm first and foremost a Magneto apologist. So this is a kangaroo court. This is a mockery of justice, and I will defeat our sweet grandfather with the last breath in my body. No, seriously though, this is great. It's been a hell of a lead up. With the gala behind us and the death of the Scarlet Witch. This is like big stuff. This is big stakes, and I think we're off to a great start. I love the artwork. I loved Leah's writing. I love all the pontifications and big, shout out to the letterer for being able to really work with some of these almost Claremontian diatribes. I loved it.
Now, Juancho, how did you feel about this book? Was that a big thumbs up for you? Big thumbs down?
No, big thumbs up. I thought it was great. Leah was fantastic on writing, and I really, really enjoyed this new artist, Lucas. Well, he worked on Empire, but this was like a lot better and really, really good. And I, just like Arturo, I loved everybody giving big old speeches, just like the 70s and 80s. And I thought it was fantastic.
I think you can tell where this is going. Steve, I'm pivoting to you next. You are always, when you do have a counter opinion, you're always like, well, I just want to explain why. And so I'm ready if you do have some feels, but I'm also ready if you don't.
Well, first of all, I would like to ask that everybody please respect my privacy in this difficult time while my boyfriend is on trial. It's very much stressing me out, but since we're here already to talk about it, I'd just like to say that I'm thrilled with this book so far. It is very exciting, and it very also stresses me out. You mentioned Magneto putting his magnet hands on Xavier, and honestly, that just that made me very freaked out. I was like, he should not be. I know that he's very upset, and he's right to be very upset. I am not a fan of his other husband, but man, it's rough working together as such a power team, whether or not they've been doing good things. That's another question. For the last 2 years, I was very upset to see that, to be honest. Wow. But it also reminded me of the fact that Xavier has trusted Magneto so implicitly for so long that he's taken to wearing a metal hat around his skull all the time around him. And I'm like, man, I forgot how close they are now.
And what a copy of Magneto that
exciting
is.
issue.
Oh, I have a great echo. But what
I
I
thought
really
you were
liked
just
seeing
being dramatic.
Magneto go full Silver Age again for a brief bit. I feel like this is a bit of a misdirect because, you know, he's a very dramatic person. He knows what he looks like. But yeah, it's absolutely thrilled to see where this is going.
Now,
It
speaking of,
was, I agree, it was tough seeing the happily married couple that they have become, having them have this big spat in front of the council was not easy to watch, but it was entertaining.
I'm
It
gonna
is
disagree, and
entertaining
I thought it
from a
was
purely-
fantastic to see
From a
because
I
conflict
hate
is more
Xavier
interesting.
standpoint.
oh yeah, from the conflict being fascinating and the simultaneous hating Xavier standpoint, these are all true. And Jonah, speaking of enjoying conflict and loving watching drama, this was sort of the Magneto you left behind when we stopped covering the 1980s, leading off in 1984, just after the Secret Wars. Well, Magneto not quite redeemed, still kind of being like, magnet in the face, bitch, magnet in the face, asshole. Very, you know, problem Magneto as he was. So I want to know, did you enjoy seeing, you know, Muscle Granddad go back to being like a big, angry, mean man? Or are you like, no, that's Daddy Maggie? Oh, but you know what? I would, but you just got to unmute for me to hear it.
Oh, so you didn't hear my voguing comment. You saw me vogue. You didn't hear me say anything. So I enjoy Magneto in both of those roles. I think both of those roles can coincide together. They're not really one to one. Of you have to pick one Magneto. You can have Magneto be the really hot silver fox who was like showering naked under that waterfall in that one panel for a while ago, and it was absolutely, you know, gorgeous and stunning, and everybody, even from his first iterations when they're on that the Sentinel head and Magneto has his base there and all the X-Men go there, and Storm's like, should I stab Magneto? And Magneto is this ripped god, and he's just like, ugh, like that, and you're all like, no, Storm, we know what you want to do, and we all know what we would do.
If you're all looking for that hot ass porn content, we're talking Uncanny X-Men number 150, back when Magneto was still kind of a bad guy, but laying around naked all the time like a real bad guy.
One
Yeah,
of my
nobody in
favorite
the X-Men sleeps with clothes on.
issues.
Magneto is a versatile king. He is both things. He is the grandfather of Krakoa, beloved by the youth, and you know, and a living legend. And he's also a badass motherfucker who will kill a bitch or
He-
many, many, many bitches.
He's the Cristiano Ronaldo of mutancy, if you will. Right? There's just statues to him all over the world. When he says don't drink soda, it all falls the fuck apart. Pepsi has to go into bankruptcy. So
Also,
yeah,
now I want you to write the musical "Don't Cry for Me, Krakoa."
I could slap you. I love that so much.
Obviously, Magneto would be playing Eva Peron. But
Don't cry for
uh,
me, Arbor Magna.
"Don't Cry for Me, Arbor Magna." Um, so as I said, it's not a one-to-one. We can see Magneto kind of get angry, kind of get mean, and kind of get this power trippy a little bit of like, I kind of really loved, and I don't know if it was because of the meme of how popular the line was from Endgame, but the no, I don't think I will, was just really funny. It was
Yeah.
like really good, and it's kind of like, yeah, if Magneto doesn't want to go, he doesn't really have to go. This there's some really amazing things and components of this book that I really like, and I'm really excited to continue reading about. I love the X Factor investigation part of everybody coming together to use their powers to be like, all come to the same conclusion of our prime suspect being Magneto. I love Magneto fighting, being like, no. And clearly, I am of the mindset that Magneto did not do this. There are many people who could have done this.
I'm
There are
going to
many
pause you
people.
here. I'm very
Oh.
into your theory. I can't wait to know more, but I want to get to that part of the mystery. And there's no
I,
better.
I do think it's a big misdirect.
It's
Oh,
got to be.
yeah.
Otherwise, this is a
Oh, yeah.
poorly staged foregone conclusion.
Yeah, that would be so bad. If
It would be so
obviously
bad.
Yeah.
But you know what was so good?
It's like, oh yeah, it was obviously Magneto. That's why he put on the terrorist clothes.
And you know what? I just gotta say, I love seeing the X Factor kids. I mean, hey, unless this is the first time you've ever heard my voice on a podcast, you know how much I love that team and how devastated I still am by the cancellation. Seeing them out there doing their jobs and just killing it, and Prodigy's like going to solve this whole damn mystery. Just awesome. I was just so happy to see them still as a unit, still working and still existing in Krakoa.
And that's exactly what I was going to touch on. But I thought there was something really dynamically unique about this presentation of the X Factor team. It had something that I guess I never realized it needed before. It needs the whole Logan family. I cannot get remotely emotionally enough of seeing
But
Laura
it's not the
adopted.
whole Logan family.
Yeah, that whole Logan
have-
family means the whole world
No,
to
we're
me.
missing one
We're
person.
missing a
Gabby!
Honey Badger.
Gabby.
Right?
And Honey Badger. And Jonathan, I'm sorry.
Ooh, and I don't want to be like annoying, but there are some other really cool Wolverine characters that maybe aren't related, but could hang out with them. It wouldn't bother me. But I loved Leah Williams saying, "Look, this is the Trial of Magneto, and I have the breadth of the Marvel universe at my fingertips. This is a big book, and I'm sure there would have been some editorial pushback somewhere, but she said." I want to write a story with internal logic because if we're solving a trial here, if we're doing an investigation, it needs internal logic. The fact that page 1 kicks off with the best trackers on Krakoa joining X Factor says to me that Leah has plotted this whole thing out in like a big sprawling way. And that opening sequence where Rachel shines so dynamically and we get such terrific dialogue from the interaction. I'm wondering how much we're going to need to go back and investigate some of the elements. For instance, they have her time of death wrong according to the other books. They place her time of death prior to subsequent appearances she has on the island. So I find myself wondering how intricate these clues were. How do you guys feel about playing detective along with, as Arturo pointed out, this genius lineup? Now, Arturo, you pointed it out. I'm going to go to you first. How do you feel about playing detective along with them? Are you engaged in the mystery, or are you here for the fun times?
Both. I'm very engaged with the mystery. As soon as we heard of the Trial of Magneto, before we even knew it was Scarlet Witch, there were theories, right? Mystique, Exodus, Charles Xavier, Onslaught, for all the hell we know. Like, there are so many different potential players. Maybe the misdirect is that it was Magneto all along. I don't think that's the case. But I'm here for the mystery. I'm here for it seeming obvious, and that makes it clear that it is not obvious. And I'm also here for the fact that Leah, and God bless her, Leah takes the time to give you these like little tender moments where you're reminded that these are not just colleagues that work together on teams, but they're family. Logan calling Akiro son, my heart. Like, that to me was like just outstanding. Lorna and Eric going for it, like that whole thing, and the callback to when she asked him to describe herself back in the pages of X Factor, just masterful work. And again, like, Leah has this huge assignment, this big story to tell, but still takes the time to make these small moments that just mean a lot.
I really like this going in order thing. It takes a lot of pressure off of me. So Juancho, you're up.
So I want to talk about two things that that I really like. First is the party, the people on Krakoa celebrating the death of the Scarlet Witch, which was very funny, and we got to see all of Exodus' little cult. That was very funny for me, and especially someone who isn't like so attached to the Scarlet Witch, because I just read Uncanny Avengers. Big mistake. Don't read it. And yeah, and the other part that I really enjoyed was the voting, when they voted to resurrect her, because that whole dialogue is making implicit that Krakoa and the Five can resurrect humans. They just choose not to. And I think that's going to be very important going forward, not just for this story, but for whatever comes next for Krakoa post Inferno. And it also gives us a glimpse of what actually happened in Hellions for the Maddie vote, who voted to resurrect Maddie and who voted against it. I thought it was very surprising that Storm voted against resurrecting Wanda. I thought that was very interesting.
Hey, Storm
And
is practical, just like Emma Frost. They,
yeah,
you know,
and I thought that Emma was, this was my favorite line. The issue was Emma just will be finally losing a world free of Wanda. Like, she's wanted to kill Wanda for like 20 years now. I thought that was great. Very in character.
I appreciate you being
So,
so
very
yeah,
in character.
kind.
That right there.
I think she's wanted to kill Emma. I think she wanted to kill Wanda for like, oh, this woman runs around in red with a cat mask. She should die. Like, I think it
Oh,
goes
no,
back.
it does. It goes back to like the decimation when they were, sitting around with the Avengers discussing how to handle the problem of Wanda, and
yeah,
Emma
and
Frost was like,
yeah, just kill her. Be
yeah.
done with it. And 20 years later, we have another great scene. And yeah, I thought that
Yeah.
was great. So yeah,
I do want to challenge one thing you said though. I don't think that that they can resurrect humans. I think they've created this little loophole where Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, although they are not mutants, they did fool Cerebro long enough that there's backups there. So I think they're like in their own little category. I don't think this opens it all up to everybody. Although potentially, of course, they probably could, but there's no reason to believe Cerebro is recording the minds and essences of every single person on Earth. Maybe.
yeah, I was gonna,
So I reject the human thing,
I was
but
gonna,
I think resurrecting old backups of Wanda and Pietro opens up like a lot of cool possibilities, and it's a nice way of fixing two kind of broken characters through no fault of their own.
yeah, I was gonna refute your refutal, but you're actually right, because they are, just both Wanda and Pietro are special in that they're basically the only two humans that have backups. Nobody, we don't know yet, but supposedly they're the only two. And yeah, it would be very cool if, let's say, the version that we got was Wanda pre House of M. If Wanda was to be resurrected, what would happen on Krakoa for a person that hasn't done all those awful things that
Well, I
she
mean, that
did?
would be restoring her to a backup before it. And I do get the question. The same thing happened with Tony Stark with Extremis. He restarted himself to a previous version, still went to jail. You are still
Magneto
responsible
was
for the
starting
things
to a
you
previous
don't
version and
remember.
when Magneto was put
But
on
she
trial
hasn't
for a
even
previous
done
version
them.
of his life originally.
Well, no, but she's still done them. This one hasn't memories of it, but Wanda Maximoff still did it. So even if she has no memory of it, because that part of her memory is gone, Wanda Maximoff still did that. And it's the same thing that happened with Trial of Jean Grey when they tried Jean Grey
Oh
for
yeah,
the crimes of the Phoenix.
yeah.
So in the Marvel Universe, even if you have no memory of it, even if you haven't done it yet,
You can be tried.
you
Yeah.
did it. Now, I do want to ask a
Well,
little bit more
and
about,
that's
well, I just want to pivot to Steve and Jonah
Sorry.
for a minute. So Steve, Jonah, I want to ask you guys, how do you guys feel about the investigation and where we've come with the council having some perturbing moments?
Well, I think the investigation part is extremely cool. I like the idea of all of the mutants on Krakoa, or at least the ones that we see in the pages of Popular X books, coming together to use each of their unique talents to work together on a crime scene. It's the way that like X Factor would have worked had it been larger and longer. So I am enjoying getting to see that. So North Star is not around to tell Eye Boy to stop telling Beast all of his powers, and that's alarming. He's just willy-nilly telling him what he can do, and Beast is just like, let me write that down for later war crimes. So that's not great. The investigation is interesting, right? Because they made a really good point that like not all those mutants should be there present watching the autopsy, like Lorna Dane, who also has metal powers and conveniently was never considered a suspect because she was like, give me a head start, I'll go get Magneto. People with supernatural metal bending powers at the scene of a crime where that is allegedly what killed Wanda. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of potential for fuckery around here. I like Mystique bringing up that Eric might be responsible for Wanda's death before they even knew that there was metal involved. You know.
Now, Jonah, you're very protective of your daddy Magnus. How do you feel about the investigation? Do you feel it's been a fair investigation so far? Or do you feel that there are some things that maybe aren't making sense?
There are some things that aren't making sense. I want to go back, not even in just this book, in a lot of books. Way of X is one that's coming to mind right now. We saw a lot of in the background focus on Magneto and Wanda off in the distance. In Way of X, they were dancing off while Kurt was passed out drunk. In a couple of other issues, we did see them together. So a lot of what is being pointed at is like Magneto is the killer. Magneto is the one who done it. But I don't know if I can fully believe that. Especially, I'm not always someone who believes well, where there's smoke, there's fire. To say that someone acting defensive and upset over something means that they did something bad or that they are the culprit. It's not always fair because people always react to different things in different ways. I am of the mindset that while I don't think Magneto did it, Magneto definitely knows something, because if Magneto didn't do it and was fully innocent, there's no reason for Magneto not to submit to a psychic scan being like, here, check me. I'm clear. I can tell you exactly when I left. I can show you exactly what happened. So I think there's a specific reason why Magneto doesn't and isn't actually denying it, because I feel like whether this was a plan from Wanda, whether this was a plan from somebody else, whether it's he knows who did do it and doesn't want to name them, there are a lot of different possibilities here that I'm really excited to see whether they do come to fruition or something completely different that I didn't think of. So I do appreciate the X Factor team doing their due diligence of understanding like Magneto is number one because he was the last person seen with her, and there are signs of him potentially using his powers. And especially the method of death seems a lot more personal than a random someone trying to kill Wanda would do. But I think there are a lot of people who'd be out to get Wanda who would make it personal and who could manipulate metal even if they aren't metallic benders slash masters of magnetism. I think there's a lot to keep in mind, and I encourage everyone, look for more clues. We can figure this out.
Yeah, and I think it's very interesting that, I mean, Wanda at the end, they mentioned like the white cape, and Wanda is completely white at the end of the issue. I'm not saying Wanda killed herself, but it's a possibility.
She's killed in a different way in her perspective than we see
Yeah.
happening in the autopsy. So either the autopsy is wrong or Wanda remembers it differently or
Or
something else.
she, you know, she can manipulate reality. So
Yes.
and
Yeah, yeah,
there's plenty of
totally.
people with white capes that could have done this.
Emma Frost.
And I'm thinking Magneto, besides Emma and the Cuckoos, Magneto was the only person that had two outfits for the Hellfire Gala, because he had the gold and white that he wore with Xavier, and then he switched to that like white costume he's been wearing for the dance. And we know that Wanda was killed before the dance, or at least that's what the time implies. So Magneto was not really wearing a white cape. I think it was a gold cape, or at least it had some gold. And maybe that's I'm just reading too much into it, but it could
I
be
think
a thing.
we should consider that
I
the
think
Moon Knight might have done it.
I I think Scarlet Witch having a hand in it is a really high likelihood. I think one of the cool things that is coming out of this book is, instead of doing the resurrection, which I think we kind of, maybe a lot of us were guessing that might be what's happening, and seeing that old version backup of Wanda, which could have been a cool way to quote unquote fix the character. I think it's really cool that, one, that was voted down, and two, she's kind of seems like resurrecting herself, And as a reality warper, it's like, okay, who knows where this is all leading, but maybe this is like, you know, a butterfly coming out of a cocoon type of situation, where she is going to be able to fix herself rather than being fixed by the resurrection.
And you
Like
know
a
who's not a
reverse,
stranger to
like
a
a reverse
cocoon?
Franklin.
Can we talk about where she is?
Okay, yeah. So I have a
Oh,
question. I have a question for everybody. I need to know. Okay, there's that page with the symbols, right? And you can't really make it out because I'm holding up a screen, but it's got the symbols,
It's the
right?
last
Yeah.
page. Yeah, it's the last
The
page.
top one
I want to talk
has
about that.
8 spokes. The next one
It's an
Can't-
8-pointed chaos star.
can't just be the same as the previous because it is clearly 5 spokes at a different alignment. And then we have the third at the bottom, which I can't help but see as trees. And
Yep. Trees on a planet. Trees
I-
on an asteroid.
greatly wonder if part of why the Phoenix has moved to Avengers and Sword is using the white hot room is because they are repurposing what the white hot room is in Krakoa. And I have to wonder if this is all part of that. Now I have to hear everybody else's opinions. I have to know what everybody's theory is.
Good. I could start if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. It seems clearly the White Hot Room, which we saw previously connected in Sword to the Mysterium, which we see all over the page with Wanda. And in that issue, we clearly see that the White Hot Room is not only mutant heaven or Phoenix heaven, but like actual heaven, because there's an Ophanim in it. I don't actually know what the singular for Ophanim is. I'm sorry, but it's an angel, and like there is a real mystical, metaphysical heaven dimension, similar to I think the below place, but an above place. And it's very interesting to me what Al Ewing and others have been doing with it. It's interesting to me what Jason Aaron is doing with the Phoenix in relation to it. Well, you know that when the Phoenix is in the White Hot Room, they're always wearing white. So that explains why Wanda's wearing it, in addition to the whole mystery of the white caped attacker. I keep coming back to the 8-pointed Chaos Star because we just talked about this in Defenders #1 very recently. But Wanda's whole element is chaos. That clearly is a representative of her. As you see it going to 5 spokes, I see it going to more of a horizon. And then when it becomes, like you said, it's the color of cartoon trees. It's a strangely crude drawing almost.
It's
but
very like Minecraft.
It's graphical in the way that these data pages are. Yeah, it's very Minecraft. But to me, that represents something that looks like a planet or a place with trees on it, like Krakoa,
An
or
island.
like Asteroid K that we saw in Powers of X, that like asteroid Krakoa orbiting outside of Mars. It could represent the terraforming of Mars. There's a lot going on there. And I'm just like, this is just, what does it say? Where am I? In just cursive typing? There's so
Wait,
much.
Where
going
am
on,
I?
and
I think
can't
I
figure it out.
figured it out. So the number of spokes are 8, 5, and 3, which are part of the Fibonacci
Oh,
sequence.
damn.
And if you graph
Yeah.
the Fibonacci sequence, it helps create a perfect spiral. Spirals in the
Oh my
Mojoverse.
God.
Mojo did it.
All right, well, if
Baby,
like,
we're
two
so
words
close
are
till the
I
in
Spiral
Mojoverse
did it.
thing. But I do love that you brought in the Fibonacci sequence. That is some real good math brain decoding, right? Which,
Yes. And you're
mad
right.
good.
Wait, I can tell you guys one place I know Wanda where she is not, and that is at the Blue Lagoon. I'm sorry, the Green Lagoon, drinking with the old I messed that all up. Drinking with the old Brotherhood of Mutants, evil mutants at that.
Broke my
I
heart.
love that little scene, seeing Quicksilver and
That was
Toad
a
and Blob
gut
together,
punch.
like beautiful.
Such an emotional gut punch. I showed the scenes just with Quicksilver in this book to a friend of mine just this morning that I'm at his house, and literally brought him to tears.
You know what almost brought me to tears? Quicksilver's big fat ass when North Star is hugging him and
And
consoling
yeah,
him.
it's
Oh, my thick boy. That's how a runner should be built.
yeah, he runs a lot.
Okay, Juancho, everybody's rung in with their opinion. We have
Yeah.
Steve and I in a pretty similar place. We have Arturo bringing in some interesting things. We have Jonah on Planet Jonah. Just saying. But then we have, so Juancho, what is your take on where Wanda is?
I'm sorry. Um, yeah, I actually hope it's not the White Heart Room because I'm really tired of Marvel using the Phoenix stuff for non-Phoenix stuff. So
I'm actually with you on
I'm
that.
sorry.
Okay, no, now I'm
So-
into it. Now I'm into it.
Like,
I'm with
like
you on that part.
yeah. So, and I don't think she's in the White Heart Room either. But it's very interesting that the wheels, like it could be that the 8-spoke wheel split into two, and one that is her body is in Krakoa, like the trees, and like her essence or her metaphysical essence is somewhere else, and that's why we have two different wheels. Like the 8-spoke broke off in two parts. Like I don't know much about like symbology and all that, but that's how I read it when you were talking about the trees, and like one is split
So you see it
somehow,
as like a zooming in.
and she knows she's split, and like Wanda is sort of split because she knows she's dead, but she's also kind of alive at the same time. So there's like two Wandas going somewhere,
Doesn't
floating
it
around somewhere.
doesn't it look like she stabbed herself, like another version of the same white costume, but with a hood, like Moon Knight?
Yep.
Yeah,
Watch.
I
That'll
mean-
be the,
that's Moon.
that's going to be the evil Wanda that's responsible for all of the bad things
Her name is
Wanda has
Perfection.
ever done. And once we defeat her, then
I
good
mean,
Wanda will be restored.
I hope that doesn't happen because that would be just like Jean from X Factor. Like she's not Jean, but she was an alien being, and I don't think that was very fun. Like I
I-
think Wanda doing bad things is better than erasing her bad stuff.
I agree.
I have one kind of split down the middle because I've had a thought for a couple of years, and when Wanda kind of got shuffled to the back of the deck, I really didn't think about it much. But what if she was a mutant? What if she and Quicksilver were mutants? But we know that the energy that she destroyed when she MD'd had to go somewhere. And then we found out it went into space, into the collective man. He became Weapon Omega, what the fuck ever. I don't care. But what I do think is important about this is we do understand that the siphoning off of mutant energy, as it was, by her spell, had real life implications. What if she and Quicksilver became not mutants? And that is why they fooled Cerebro for so long, because they were fucking mutants. And they're determining, based on information now, that information in the past was incorrect. What if this is a manifestation of Wanda's mutant essence trying to put itself back in her? That is not outside of the scope of what they literally defined her actions on M-Day as, siphoning the mutant energy out of people and releasing it into the aether. So it's kind of an interesting thought that maybe this is somewhere in between erasing her sins and restarting her.
Possibly.
And this made me think of Franklin Richards. I mean, when it comes to like reality warping
Mhm.
Omega level mutants, and I don't know if Wanda's technically Omega level, but I mean, I'd
I think
say
she used
wiping
to
out
be.
the entire mutant population would, qualify her as.
If not, change your
Uh,
fucking definition.
yeah, I mean, like if
I
you
think it
can
was just.
alter
I think that was just
reality,
not a
then
concept at
like
the
you
time.
can certainly alter your DNA or whatever. So yeah, I mean, maybe we get Wanda and Pietro back into mutant kind, and maybe eventually that ushers in, Franklin's return.
We can dream. I mean, I don't know that for whatever reason they chose to make Franklin not a mutant. I don't know that it could have come at a worse time. It just, it so cut the character off from such a big idea. And I don't think there's a single person on this show who hasn't said it's a shame at least 10 times. So I don't want to just keep harping because I sound redundant. But things that are not redundant. We just had the first of a 5-issue miniseries change the status quo of Krakoa in a way that has not occurred yet. Ten of Swords didn't change the status quo of Krakoa because the Iraqi were kept so far away and so removed, and that was something we said a number of times. This directly changes everything. If Magneto and Xavier have a breakup, the power dynamic is no longer Xavier and everyone else. You know what I mean? It's no longer, oh, he's got Storm on his side and Magneto on his side, and they'll always back him up. Suddenly, there's kind of a power vacuum. What do you guys expect from the upcoming issues of this series? And this time we're going to start with Jonah and go backward. Jonah, what are you looking for from the further adventures of the Trial of Magneto and Phoenix?
I am looking for the culprit. I would love a
Hot
really,
take.
and I trust, hot take. Yeah, no, I'm the only person who wants this. I trust the team to really deliver a good mystery into a culprit that is either so obvious we overlooked it, someone who we didn't know, but the clues are there. I'm really looking forward to a lot of different things involving the mystery itself of who done it, who killed Wanda. I'm looking for a lot of change to come from Krakoa, of maybe thinking about how whether what Wanda did was terrible, but maybe the cult following of calling her a pretender and then celebrating her death like ding dong the witch is dead, maybe we revisit that and we talk about, hey, maybe we don't do that.
How very internet
Uh,
culture.
I know. No, I'm for it. Am I looking for? Oh, I would love to know where this resolution of what are we doing with Wanda. I think we definitely saw it in Empire where Wanda has started to not only regret what she did, but is understanding the gravity of the decision that she did make, whether she was in control of herself or not. She still made the decisions to do what she did, especially during M Day, and having to suffer the repercussions of what the decision did to her, as well as whether or not they're her people or not. Who's to say? But I would love a clear designation for Wanda's character going forward. And I have a prompt that I would love to know how people would feel about it.
We're
So
running a little short on time, so I'm going to move to
yeah,
Steve real quick.
okay.
So sorry. Steve, what are you looking for from the rest of the series?
I want to say, first of all, thank you, Jonah, because you said a lot of what I was thinking about Wanda, that they need to get that settled. But what I'm looking forward to from the rest of the series is, and I'm going to break character a little bit here. We have to talk about how shitty and abusive Magneto is to everybody in his life, everybody he loves, from Charles to every single one of his children. And it's a thing that hampers it doesn't hamper my enjoyment of the character. I can't like him as much as I would like to like him, obviously, because he's like one of the world's worst dads, in love with another one of the world's worst dads. But like, he needs, in order to make his character the hero of Krakoa, the White Knight of Krakoa that he wants to be, and that fans do often see him as, including myself, he needs to have accountability for the way that he treats those he loves in his life. And it can't just be swept under the rug of Magneto was right about these things, but we can't talk about his family. And I'm seeing that as a huge part of this issue. Quicksilver shows up. Wow, exciting to me. Love him. But it's just, I think that this trial of Magneto is really going to be more of a trial of him as him coming to accountability for the way he treats the people in his lives, more or less. I think that is honestly going to be more of the focus of it, despite being also about the trial of the death of the Scarlet Witch. And that's what I'm excited to see more of. I hope that we can see some kind of moving on or him learning and growing from the way he treats Lorna, because it's unconscionable and you can't keep doing it.
It is truly unforgivable. I love that point. Juancho, what are you hoping for from our subsequent issues?
I always thought this was more like a trial in the sense of a test more than a legal trial. And I think this is a trial, not just a test, not just for Magneto as a character, as Stephen just perfectly, well, that was really perfectly summarized. And like Krakoa as a whole thing, where we celebrate, I mean, like Jonah was saying, and as much as I enjoy seeing those little kids, it's pretty fucked up that they have a massive cult following, celebrating the death of a person. And I think that it's also a way for Krakoa, and given that this is going to come out parallel to Inferno, to how the Quiet Council actually works. And I think that's going to be a massive change that's going to come from these next few months. And that's what I hope to see, like a change in how Krakoa evaluates like the morality of what things they've done and they're going to do, especially like for Beast, like the war criminal. And just, if Krakoa is a place for healing, Magneto and the rest of the Quiet Council have to allow that healing and not foster hate. And I think that's going to be important to see. And I hope we see it. And I know that Leah can do it. So
Oh yeah.
that I'm hoping for that.
Well,
I agree with all of these eloquent points that everybody has made. I'm going to throw a curveball out there. I think the Trial of Magneto and the impending crumbling of the very shaky Quiet Council, plus what is happening over in the latest Hellions, is a perfect stage for, wait for it, Chimera. I want to see Joseph resurrected. I want Joseph to take the mantle of North. I want him
Oh
to
my
be,
God.
Magneto's son that never was. Maybe, to speak to all the points you guys were making about how Magneto has been such a shitty dad to everybody.
oh, now I hope he killed
Maybe,
Wanda.
through Joseph, there is some atonement. So that's really what I want. And one last final thing I want to say, there's moments where you're reading a comic book and you have a thought, and then you go on X Twitter and you see somebody else not only had the same thought but did the work of like illustrating it or putting the meme together. So shout out to my girlfriend Lisa Marie for putting the Wanda with rose petals right next to Sasha Velour doing the epic wig reveal with the showering
Lisa
rose petals,
Chaos
because that
Marie.
was exactly Lisa Chaos Marie, God love her. That is exactly what I was feeling as we got to those pages, all the rose petals everywhere. Shout out to Sasha Velour for inventing
And red.
roses.
I automatically, when I hear wig reveal, I automatically think it's Kimberly pulling her wig off on Melrose Place. And that's just where I go. But I want to thank you guys so much for coming out to talk about the Trial of Magneto. We, of course, have double coverage on the Trial of Magneto, such a monumentous moment for the Krakoan age of X-Men. And guys, until next time, don't forget, this has been X for Podcast. You guys can check us out over on Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon over at X's for Podcast, XISFORPODCAST. I just love spelling. Have a good day.
Rock on.
Okay, I
Love
have
you guys.
Bye.
Hey guys, if you like that cut from X's for Podcast, you'll be sure to like some of our other materials. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out these other amazing videos here at X's for Podcast.